Okay, I'm going to apologize right now that this video is very late in coming today. I have tried multiple times today. My Comcast internet was out for hours, which means that it actually was going in and out. So I would record and it would stop, or I actually got all the way through recording and then it wouldn't let me save. I recorded on my phone, and for some reason, it will not upload, which I've never had that problem before. I even tried uploading to YouTube, and it won't happen. So that's why I'm late with it. I'm also super, super casual because my air conditioning is also out. I swear, this is 2020, right? So air conditioning out, it's almost 8 p.m. and almost still 90 degrees in Indiana, so my house is hot. I am, though, repping a Wine to Water tank top. Wine to Water is the water charity that we work with for international service learning in the Dominican Republic. So hopefully, our next trip for that, our next course and trip, will be in fall of 2021. If you're interested, I always teach and lead that class, and you can take it for history credit or you can take it for Spanish credit, and it's really a great experience. So fingers crossed that that will be able to happen. So we're in our next unit, and you have two chapters. They're super dense with information. I say this and I mean it, and that's why I have 5 PowerPoints up in our modules. They, of course, like all the PowerPoints, they don't follow the chapters. They're not like chapter reading PowerPoints. They're supplemental materials to help you understand what's going on in Latin America in the late 19th century and little teeny tiny part at the beginning of the 20th century, because that's where we're at. So it's going to help you with kind of political relations and economics and what's happening. So your first chapter that you're reading is about progress, and I'm putting progress in quotes because when you think about progress and you're looking at Latin America in the late 19th century, you cannot think about progress from a 21st century US perspective. I mean, hey, when you think about the United States in the late 19th century, you cannot think about progress from a 21st century US perspective, right? But especially Latin America. Latin America is developing along the lines of supplying industry, even though they easily could have industrialized on their own. They had everything they needed, they chose not to. So, but in this time period, you're going to see some beginnings of industrialization in some areas. You're going to see modernization in terms of urbanization, in terms of education, in terms of immigration. Latin America was a hotspot for immigration in the late 19th century. And you're going to see reasons for this. You're going to see progress that was made for women. You're going to see progress in terms of international relations. So there's a lot going on in this time period that equates to late 19th century progress, not the same as we would see it today. The other chapter is on neocolonialism. Now, neocolonialism can be a confusing concept at first for some people. And this is where I always make a disclaimer for the first time, I guess, in a semester of this class. Because when people think of neocolonialism and they read these chapters, they think, oh my God, this is not very favorable to the United States. I've had people ask me why the textbook is biased, or why it's not more pro-US. But keep in mind, you are learning about these things from a Latin American perspective. It's not from a US history perspective. It's not from a US relations perspective. You're looking at it from the Latin American perspective, okay? So we're not looking for the US reasons of why or justifications. We're looking at impacts in the region we're studying. And so in the late 19th century, the industrializing world was interested in colonialism, right? Europe is going out on their scramble for Africa. They are out trying to eat up the African continent, setting their flags, setting their boundaries, and it's because they want resources and they want markets and they want places to send people. Okay? The US is not involved in this for a few reasons. Number one, the US is on the other side of the world. Number two, the US is not recognized as a power in this time period. Late 19th century, we were a nobody. Okay? We were not a power. We were not a great power. We were not a power at all. And number three, the US is a former colony. It would be really hypocritical to go out and seek these colonies, right? Okay, so you have the scramble for Africa going on. You also have things going on in Asia where they're dividing China into treaty ports, and they're looking for influence in Meiji Japan, right? So, and the U.S. was involved in some of those things because they were not outright colonialism, but still, you have all this area in the Americas which was huge and full of resources, and who's going to control it? Well, in 1823, the United States issued the Monroe Doctrine, which basically said, Europe, stay out of the Americas. We've won our freedom. You cannot come in and colonialize us again. So we're going to protect the Americas from any kind of European incursion. But by the late 19th century, this wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to exert our influence. And so we needed more. And so this idea of neocolonialism is that you can have a colonial type situation, but not outright political control, not outright economic control. It's done through things like gunboat diplomacy, where, you know what, you do what we think is right politically and economically, or we will send in our military. It's dollar diplomacy, where we will throw money at you as long as you agree with our ideas. But if you don't, we're going to pull it back. We're not going to buy your products. We're not going to sell you to you. We're not going to give you an economic influence. It's done through things like the Roosevelt corollary to the Monroe Doctrine, which, yes, you have to read a small section of that. Only a small section. I don't assign the entire thing because it's already rather convoluted and can be confusing. So it's better to just read a part of it, because even that part is dense with lots of language because it's open to interpretation, and that was intentional. Okay, so U.S. interest in this region at the time is to have stability. That's what we talked about, stability, stability, stability. And it would go on throughout the 20th century like that. But stability, why? Why? It's because we want to protect our economic and political interests. Why did we become involved in the Cuban War of Independence? We call it the Spanish-American War. It was already ongoing as the Cuban War of Independence. Why? Because we had economic interest in the region, because we wanted a military base there, because we wanted to protect our building of the Panama Canal, right? It was strategic. It was economic. We insisted that Cuba adopt the Platt Amendment to their constitution. It was an amendment written by a U.S. senator, but Cuba had to adopt it to their constitution before we left the country as a means of control. That's what it was. It was control. And we're going to see this time and time and time again throughout the 20th century. So when I'm asked, why is the textbook biased? Why is the textbook talk about the U.S. in these ways? Because the U.S. was doing these things. And when I'm asked, aren't you a patriot? Aren't you proud of being a part of the U.S.? I am. I'm a proud U.S. citizen. I don't call myself a proud American because we're talking about Americas. We're talking about Americans throughout this entire semester. Everybody who lives in these continents are Americans. But yes, I am a proud U.S. citizen. I love my country, but I also recognize its downfalls. And that's all I am asking you to keep an open mind to, right? Keep an open mind to the varying reasons we are involved in the region, how it impacted them, and we're going to see this moving forward into the present day. And it's significant. It's significant to understand what's even going on in our nation. I also ask that when you are interacting with each other in the discussion, and this is always in the directions, and you guys have been fantastic about this, that you be polite, you be supportive. You're going to have differing ideas, especially moving forward as we get into more controversial topics. You're going to have different ideas on that, and that's okay. But if you disagree with somebody, you do it politely. If you have questions, if you want to discuss things further, let me know. My studies, my research go very deeply into US involvement in Latin America. So this is an area I love to discuss. I love to have ideas and banter back and forth. So just let me know. If you have any questions, that as well. So let's get going. Ciao.